Kamala Harris torched for a progressive wish list.
She has no real ideology. I know she's a black woman, half Asian black, and she uses that, but she has no deep-seated beliefs. In the 80s and 90s and at the millennium and after, there was this sort of Bill Clinton democratism, and so she tried to distinguish herself as a tough prosecutor. It's kind of just dreamy. It's almost as if I just would like to be transported to a San Francisco like I remember.
If I click my heels.
And there would be no feces on the ground.
There was talk of an effort to remove all the Supreme Court justices from the Virginia court.
I saw
by the age of 53. Yeah.
They're like little adolescents, 13-year-olds. If everything is my way, then the whole world is wonderful. And when I don't get my way, I throw a tantrum and are mad at my parents. And the parents in this case are the Constitution and 250 years of tradition. Democracy dies in darkness. It will be welcomed by the left.
All right, Victor, we're ready. Here we go. Hello, ladies. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to Victor Davis Hanson in his own words on the Daily Signal Network. I'm Jack Fowler. Victor's the Martin and Ely Anderson Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution, the Wayne and Marsha Buskey Distinguished Fellow in History at Hillsdale College. He's a senior contributor to the Daily Signal, which not only produces this podcast, but also Victor's special 4 times a week video series, Victor Davis Hanson in a Few Words. You should check that out, and also check out his website, The Blade of Perseus, victorhanson.com. Subscribe, $6.50 a month, $65 a year discounted. Give it to Dad for Father's Day. Victor, we are talking, I'm talking. I should shut up and let you talk. We are recording on Monday, May 18th, 2026. This episode will be up on Thursday, May 21st. I hope we'll have time at the end of the show because in real time, on the 21st, that will be the last day. The sainted Stephen Colbert performs for his diminished audience at CBS, so I want to get your take on him yet again. But we'll start the show with your take on Kamala Harris, who is pitching no bad idea brainstorming for the Democrat Party. We'll get to that and plenty more issues when we come back from these initial important messages.
America is going through a higher education transformation where students are realizing that what they want and need is a place that doesn't stifle their intellectual freedom. Standing out among the few graduate programs that value viewpoint diversity is Pepperdine's University School of Public Policy, where I've taught the last 2 years. Their Masters of Public Policy is both applied and practical, preparing the next generation of leaders to participate in government agencies, the business sector, and think tanks. Pursue your MPP at Pepperdine. Daily Signal listeners qualify for an automatic 50 to 75% tuition scholarship and can learn more at go.pepperdine.edu/Daily Signal. It's go.pepperdine.edu/Daily Signal.
We are back with Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. Beautiful day here in Milford, Connecticut. I hope it's the same out there, Victor, in the Central Valley, where
it was very windy, but it's getting better. Very windy.
People should remember, if they eat a salad, they have tomato sauce, they have a nut, it's coming from Victor's neighborhood.
It is.
Environs. So, all right, here's the headline, Victor. Kamala Harris torched for a progressive wish list. Here's the first few paragraphs of this article. Harris said during Wednesday night live stream on the Win with Black Women podcast that Democrats need, quote, an expanded playbook and need to consider radical positions ahead of the 2026 midterm elections, including abolishing the Electoral College, packing the Supreme Court. Look, she says, this is a moment where there are no bad ideas. A no bad idea brainstorm is what I'd like to call it, Harris said in the video, which quickly went viral on social media. I know Kamala Harris and the word brain in the same sentence.
Oxymoron.
Yeah. So Puerto Rico statehood, neutralizing red states. She says they're cheating on the maps, blah, 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 blah. Victor, your take.
Yeah, I mean, she goes through these metamorphoses depending. She has no real ideology. I know she's a black woman, half Asian black, and she uses that, but she has no deep-seated beliefs. In the 80s and 90s and at the millennium and after, there was this sort of Bill Clinton democratism. And so she tried to distinguish herself as a tough prosecutor. She would prosecute parents whose kids were tardy to class or truant. She would go after marijuana possessors. She was a consort of Willie Brown, and she was trying to be the moderate voice. And then when the Obama years came, she radicalized. And then her bathos point was when we had that 5 months in 2020 looting, killing, arson, and she got on CBS News. And she said, it's not going to end. It shouldn't end. I think it was with Colbert. It's going to go on. It's going to go on to the election. And then it was very funny because all the left was trying to get Trump, Jack Smith, on insurrection because he had, supposedly egged on the crowd. But he did say assemble peacefully and patriotically. She didn't even have that out. And yet they all said, well, she wasn't mentioning. And that day in Washington, of course, they had tried to storm the White House, and Trump went into his bunker. And the New York Times said he was kind of a coward for doing that. I suppose they wanted him to go out and fight with the protesters. But the point I'm making is they all said it was just nothing. And then she reincarnated herself again under Biden as vice president as open borders are, all this left wing. And then she ran, and remember she said that she didn't really know whether she was for deportations or not. That clip came out where she was going, no deportation, no deportation. And so she tried to tack to the center. She wasn't even, remember she had said she'd eliminate fracking, but now she wasn't sure. Pennsylvania was important. So now she's going to go hard left because that's where the Jacobin Party is. And then if she gets the nomination, which I pray that she does, then she will go back to left of center. She doesn't believe in anything. And she's as I said, I didn't want to be cruel, but it is true that when she starts talking and the word feelings, empathy, any metaphysical term, time, being come up, her eyes start to go like this. It's Twilight Zone music. And then she starts to babble. And then when she sees that everybody's going, is this person sane? Then she starts cackling. And she knows she can't do that, and yet she can't resist, or maybe it's some affectation, but it's sad. It really is. And
well, she knew enough as a candidate, a forced on America candidate, to not talk to the press for, 35 days or something? She didn't answer a question.
Yeah, she didn't do it the first. I want to ask the Democrats, you had power for 8 years with Bill Clinton. You had power with 8 years with Barack Obama, and you had the Congress at the beginning. Why didn't you get rid of the Electoral College then? Why didn't you bring in 2 states then? Why didn't you pack the court and get your 6 liberal judges then? Why didn't you end the Senate filibuster? Barack Obama tried to filibuster Sam Alito. And the answer is that as long as they have power, they put those things off. Then when they get out of power, the system's not fair. The system's fair that got them power.
Right.
And then when they're like little adolescents, 13-year-olds. If everything is my way, then the whole world is wonderful. And when I don't get my way, I throw a tantrum and are mad at my parents. And the parents in this case are the Constitution and 250 years of tradition. Yeah. You didn't get me in my power. You didn't get me elected. So I'm mad at you. I'm going to get in 2 states. I'm going to get rid of the filibuster. I'm going to get rid of the Electoral College. That's what I'm going to do. And it's like, it's childlike.
Yeah, along those lines, Victor, we didn't talk about it. The Virginia Supreme Court ruling and rollout, but between the rejection from the state Supreme Court and then the bungled application to the U.S. Supreme Court that had misspelled even misspelled the word Senate and other things, misspelled Virginia. There was talk of an effort to remove all the Supreme Court justices from the Virginia court
I saw
by the
that
age of 53. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
right, they don't get there. Well, we're going to do whatever we can to shoehorn in.
And I think a lot of this is when you're looking at even the left-wing analysis, Nate Silver or Cook, whatever report.
Charlie Cook, yeah.
Yeah.
The other Charles Cook, yeah.
Yeah. You start to look at it, and they're going to pick up about 10 to 14 seats, probably, the Republicans are, in this redistricting war. And they're going to pick up maybe 4 or 5 in the racial gerrymandering wars. And that's not counting this, as I said earlier, the census. It'll be long-term. But when you look at the actual seats that are up that are contested, there's only about 25, if you don't count leaning left or leaning right, and it's about 50-50 in those 25, 11. So I would say that the Republicans have about a 30 to 45% chance of holding the House.
Yeah.
And it's going to be contingent on, there's such little adolescents left. They really do believe that the war is lost. In fact, the president of Iran came out today, Jack, and he said, it doesn't do any good, essentially, for us to lie to the Iranians, said we haven't hurt. We're not hurting. We've suffered a lot of damage. He is more accurate than the left is. They've said that, Iran is winning. And my point is, whether it's, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have an instinctual gut feeling that sometime Tuesday night to Friday, we're going to go back into kinetic operations, and it's going to be quick. And there's going to be a tumult, and prices will go up, but I don't think it's going to last. I think it's going to solve the problem. They're going to open the Gulf, and there's going to be a lot of speculators with high-priced oil that want to unload it. We said last time there's 250 freighters out in seas full anywhere from 500,000 to 2 million barrels, and they're going to be unloading it. And if Trump can, by June or July, get back on the economy, the indicators are all strong, and I think the left knows that. And then when they look at the redistricting, it's not a done deal for them. And they like little kids, they just get into these temper tantrums or wild enthusiasm. Here in California, when they redistrict, they were just wild. Like, well, we did. It's going to be. Mm-hmm. And then when Virginia did, that's the icing on the, and then we're going to impeach these people. They go from like this. And I don't know.
Yeah.
This is not a Democratic Party. It isn't. These people are really weird. They're full of anger and hate. And I don't know. It's a weird mixture of Islamicism and socialism, communism, and then DEI. It's got all of these clouds that make a perfect storm.
And grifting. I mean, Stalin and the boys all needed their DACAs, and these people.
Well, there's a good article today in the Wall Street Journal about champagne socialist and about all like Bernie Sanders' lifestyle that he leads, and a lot of these billionaire, the Soros people, and all the nice things that accrue to all. Hassan Parker, his $200,000 Porsche. Yeah. They surely don't live the life they advocate for others.
No. And the things they spend on, too, by the way, today's like any other day, you read a story like, oh my gosh, there's like $750 million fraud program here, or one after the other, or just a totally insane program, 2 in California. One is this dental thing, what they spend, how many millions of dollars that serve 300 people. And then the tablets or the iPads for the prisoners.
The porn tablets for the prisoners.
Yeah. Like, what
I mean, they see this, though, they get very angry because they see it in 2 different ways. One, it punishes the right because it'll make them pay more taxes. And then 2, the money that is embezzled or stolen goes to favored groups.
either DEI groups or poor groups. So it doesn't really matter what they did to get it. The fact is they got it, and it came from better off people that paid higher taxes. And that's good. So they don't feel bad about it. They never do.
Because their beaks get wet during it also. Whatever
Yeah.
goes to
Eating
the
an Omar,
NGO.
there's some
yeah.
pretty, the New York Post had some pretty incriminating. A top person in Minnesota, she said, "I'm the only white person," basically.
Right.
She was the godmother of the fraud, and then she's basically pointing the finger at Ilhan Omar and saying that they all knew what this was going on. Anytime we got in trouble with it, we went to her and it was straightened out, meaning there was no consequences for stealing the money.
Maybe we'll wake up one morning soon, Victor, and find that she's all of a sudden is back in Somalia.
She's something. I know the right goes after her, but there's something about her that's not good. She's dishonest with her financial matters. She gave that boyfriend, her campaign, hired him and then married him. And then she says she's worth $30 million one day, right at before the crest of the fraud broke out. And then when that broke out, suddenly her fortune vanished. And she did probably allegedly marry her brother or commit some kind of immigration fraud. Her family was involved in a very brutal regime that killed thousands of people. She called this country garbage, all this stuff about her. She's anti-Semitic. It's just bad news.
Yeah. Well, Victor, we'll talk about crime here in a second, but first to our listeners and our viewers, if you've studied enough history, you start to see a pattern. Nations don't lose their way overnight. They drift through debt and division until one day you realize the foundations you thought were permanent were never permanent at all. Today, America is spending at levels once reserved for wartime. We've normalized deficits that would have stunned earlier generations, and policymakers now debate whether the only path forward is more intervention, more printing, more distortion. But here's the historical truth. Every society that pushed its currency beyond discipline eventually paid a price. The wise, though, never waited for collapse. They prepared for the correction, and that's why so many thoughtful Americans, especially those nearing retirement or in retirement, are reallocating part of their wealth into something that has outlasted every paper experiment in human history: physical gold, not as speculation, but as insulation. Our reputation matters here at Victor Davis Hanson, in his own words, which is why we're partnering with Allegiance Gold, a company distinguished by integrity, reliability, and an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. For years, they've guided Americans through transparent education and long-standing relationships built on trust. And right now, they're extending a special Liberty offer to our listeners and viewers to help you get started with real gold. Whether your funds are in a retirement account or sitting in the bank, if you believe, as we do, that the best time to reinforce your position is before the storm becomes obvious, call 844-790-9191, 844-790-9191, or visit protectwithvictor.com. That's 844-790-9191, 844-790-9191, or protectwithvictor.com. History rewards those who take the long view, and we thank the good people from Allegiance Gold for sponsoring Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. By the way, Victor, when I read this copy, and the line about nearing retirement or in retirement, I don't know if that applies to you or to me. I don't think quote-unquote retirement is ever going to happen.
I don't think it applies to our whole generation.
Yeah, right.
I think our parents, my father retired right around 60, although he never really stopped working. He worked on the farm. He was a really industrious guy, but professionally he did. And everybody, that was kind of the dream of the 1980s or 70s. You're all going to retire at 55 and play golf or whatever you do for 40 years and die in your sleep at 95. And it didn't happen that way.
Yeah,
I know I can't afford to retire.
Yes.
I like my job, too. I like it. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I could keep really busy in retirement and do a lot of things, but I like what I do.
Same thing. Yeah. I work where I work.
I like our listeners. I get the nicest letters. I read every one of them. I wish I could respond to everyone, but I got some really nice ones the other day. And of course, Jack, they're written in beautiful penmanship. They usually express a religious aspect of their lives, or many of them have had cancer. They try to be encouraging. and they go through things worse than mine. They're very nice letters.
Well, you have
Beautiful stationery. That's a lost art, that people have flowered stationery or engraved stationery. It's really nice.
Even I'm getting letters from our listeners at my house. So, wow,
That's good.
Yeah. Well, Victor, let's talk a little about to me, the pro-criminal party. So I don't think it's even soft on crime anymore. I think it's pro-criminal. So the headline from Fox News the other day: 173 House Democrats vote against resolution honoring law enforcement. Let me just read the first few lines here. Just 29 House Democrats on Wednesday voted for a GOP-authored measure paying tribute to the, quote, extraordinary sacrifice, end quote, law enforcement officers make, and criticizing the defund the police movement for jeopardizing public safety. Meanwhile, 173 Democrats voted with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries against the resolution, while every GOP lawmaker present supported it. The vote comes as assaults against law enforcement officers climbed to a 10-year high last year, according to an FBI report released Monday. The number of officers killed, though, saw a slight decrease between 2024 and 2025. But
we should
Victor,
believe it's much higher, because we know that a lot of blue states, and particularly blue cities, don't turn into the FBI their crime statistics. They feel that that's a form of racial oppression to have statistical analyses of who's arrested and for what. So they don't. The FBI statistics cannot be trusted. And even then, I mean, because they're so underreported, but you'd think that with the defund the police movement, that people would be empathetic to law enforcement, because people are, but they're not at all. I can't get over that image of the Minnesota rioting and attacking ICE and trying to humiliate them, doxing them, pointing those horrific pink phalluses at them. All these bizarre things, really sick. And then you looked at them, and I'd say 40% of them were working class Mexican Americans, Latinos, Hispanics. And then I looked at the crowd, they were like 75% Karens, if I can use that derogatory term. Excuse me. But I mean, they're affluent, white, professional, retired people. And you're thinking, well, you people all champion DEI people, but here's these people trying to make a living and keep you safe because they're going after 500,000 criminals, and you're not just protesting, you're trying to humiliate them.
Yeah.
Or you see those people go up to the two Hispanic officers in the airport. Did you see that tape? And they start dogging them and screaming at them.
Right.
It's just,
Well, they're like they're traitors. They deserve to be treated even worse, right? From the perspective of the
I guess. But
the Karens, again, not to use that phrase but they would be the ones that, if confronted in something on their street, would immediately, with their cell phone, say, "I'm calling the cop, and I'm going to call 911."
Absolutely. First ones to do it.
Yeah.
And what they go through, you can see, I mentioned that before, but there is a whole genre on the social media, TikTok, YouTube, about what law enforcement people have to confront. I think the worst thing that the left ever did after George Floyd, for their purposes, was to insist on body cam. Because remember, they said that the police are getting away with murder, and now we're going to, whether they know it or not, they're going to have to show everybody. And when everybody learned what they were doing and had to put up with, that maybe it made them more polite. I don't know. But when they pull somebody over, they're very polite. They go by the book, and the person is sassy and rude and confronts them. I'm not getting out of my car. Don't touch me. I have to make a call. Wait. And it's
weird thing?
It's really amazing because it's what they have to put up with.
They've created a theater for us to see these lunatics in action. But you're right, with the phone, they always have the phone. They're always on the phone. It's like
don't bother me. I have to make a phone, as if there's some kind of CEO and
call my lawyer.
And the policeman is a security guard, at the front door of their billion-dollar corporation. They're so self-important. Why did you pull me over? And they always say this: "Can I? What's your supervisor's name?" Somebody's taught all of our Americans to say that. I don't know, but I think people. I don't know. I've seen these pushbacks in my life, and I just feel when people feel that we have a whole element of the population, mostly on the left, who does not follow the law, and they don't, whether they're immigrants that don't have licenses that are correctly vetted, or they don't know English and they're barreling down the road with 20 tons at 60, 70 miles an hour, or we have people flooding stores or trying to. There was one in Washington, D.C. just recently. Chipotle, they went in there and had a big raucous fight. And what you see at the airports today, people are just tired of that coarseness. And they just want, and that's, I think the left has it long. This new genre where people are just putting on the internet videos, of a drive through San Francisco where we talked about 1950 or what Detroit was like in 49 or during the Pittsburgh during the war. Very calm looking. And of course the left say, well, they don't show the racism and sexism and homophobia. But I'm just talking about the general civilized look of the cities compared to today. It's not a racial thing. It's kind of just dreamy. It's almost as if I just would like to be transported to a San Francisco, like I remember.
If I click my heels,
and there would and there would be no feces on the ground. A guy wouldn't come up and try to stick me with a needle. No fornication, no injection, no urination, no defecation. Nothing of these.
You know what else you'd see? You'd see a black neighborhood. And that would exist, that would have houses and et cetera. And 10 years later, they're all gone. White liberals steamrolled them, crushed them, put everyone in these hellacious projects. So
that was supposed to be a progressive utopian planning. Yeah, they did.
A nightmare.
They did.
Victor, speaking earlier, about people who police support for police and police engagement, Jews in New York and many other cities are seeing getting the rough end of things. And Carol Markowitz, a columnist for the New York Post, has an interesting article on face it, Jewish liberals, you have no friends on the left. And we're going to get your take on that. We have an Iowa Democrat candidate who is embarrassed by whiteness, Colbert, Letterman, and the Obama Center is opening in Chicago, and Rahm Emanuel has this glowing editorial op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. We'll get your take on that, Victor, all when we come back from these important messages.
If you enjoy Victor Davis Hanson, you might enjoy the Daily Signal's flagship show, The Tony Kinnett Cast. The same common sense perspectives you love, weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And unlike some of the other evening shows, we work up until showtime to bring you the latest breaking news, analysis, and good old American sarcasm. Tom Tillis, I'm pretty sure might have been useful at one time as a doorstop. Find the Tony Kinnett Cast on YouTube, X, radio, TV, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We are back with Victor Davis Hanson, in his own words, on the Daily Signal Network. I don't know if there really is a Daily Signal Network, but we're saying that. So Rob Louie, create one. Sounds cool.
I think there is.
Yeah, well, there's a number of podcasts. Tony Kinnett and Rob sometimes does his own. So anyway, back on this Carol Markowitz New York Post piece. This is earlier. I'd say about a week ago. 5 days ago, she wrote this. On Monday, the New York Times allowed we've talked about this before. The New York Times allowed a top columnist to stain its pages with obviously fake stories of Israelis using dog rape to abuse Palestinian prisoners. The same day, masked Islamists marched through Jewish neighborhoods in Brooklyn, assaulting Jewish kids. Jewish liberals, ask yourself, where are your friends? Not on the left. Victor, any?
You mentioned Rahm Emanuel. He's praising that German flak tower of a presidential library, Obama's.
Yeah.
And why isn't he talking? Doesn't he understand? He was very vocal a supporter of Israel. Why doesn't he say to Obama, why are you silent? You haven't come out. You lecture on everything. You lecture black teens that they're being deceived by Kamala Harris, that you don't know the evil of Donald Trump. You talk about climate change. You talk about you talk about everything. Why don't you talk about the treatment of Jews and the rock-solid base of the Democratic Party at one time? Maybe it still is, Jewish supporters, and they're being under constant assault by people on the left. your word might make sense. Why doesn't Rahm Emanuel say that?
Yeah.
And that was the most obsequious, silly article. He never dealt with anything. Obama, I want to make a statement. I don't know how to put it, but
Go ahead.
they keep talking about dictator, fascism. If fascism comes to this country, it's not going to come in the form of someone with orange skin, a comb over, a little heavy girth, 80 years old with a Queen's accent that is hated by the establishment. It's going to come by a seductive, charismatic, youthful, smiley, glossy, something in a combination of Mondami and Obama. And they're going to be, and the reason that's going to happen is they're going to be given a pass. They will not be judged critically.
Right.
Trump is judged hypercritically. If he sneezes, they call him a fascist. But these guys get a complete pass. So Barack Obama took 20 phone lines of the Associated Press reporters, and he tapped them, all their data, and nothing happened. The people that were tapped, well, I'm really surprised that he did that to me. But I guess he must have had good cause. And then, in addition to that, he took Lois Lerner's IRS just basically said, we're not going to give nonprofit status to any of these conservative groups as we head into the 2012 election. We're just going to stop their fundraising. And then she planted the question so she could give that fake confession. And then they came into the office of Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Comey. What do you have? Well, we're kind of disappointed. Our investigative intelligence team doesn't really show that Donald Trump. Go back and give me the evidence. I want collusion. We want to subterfuge this new administration, undermine it. And so I could go on and on about his abuses of civil liberties, free speech, due process, and nobody cares because he is a protected person. The same thing with Joe Biden to a lesser degree because he was reptilian in his mannerism.
Right.
But
you forgot birth certificates.
Yeah. So my point is that fascism, you'll give Donald Trump will not be able to take them away if he wanted, but you will give them on a platter to Obama if he asks for them.
Yeah.
And that's true.
You remember all the Saturday Night Live skits attacking him? There maybe was one joke in 8 years. I mean, to your point about getting a pass, there was
one little
totally
clown.
immune.
The little clown, all he did was put on an Obama mask. He'd had a mask for every other president in his lifetime that he put on, and he entertained as a clown. And they banned him for life and destroyed his career.
Yeah.
And that's what Obama. He was the most thin-skinned, hyper partisan, and he really inaugurated a vast change. But when democracy dies in darkness, it will be welcomed by the left. It really will, and you can start to see it. People who believe in totalitarianism and dictatorships, the first thing they do is look at the system. And I won't say these people are analogous as they do, the reductio ad Hitlerum, but when you look at fascism in the 30s, the first thing they do is start to look at the system to change it. And in our case, it's packing the Supreme Court, getting rid of the 237-year Electoral College, getting rid of the I don't know how long the filibuster goes from 180 to 200 years. Get rid of that. Bring in new states. We've had 50 states since 1959. They want to change the system, open the border, change the demography. That is what fascism is. It's not following the rules. It's making new ones. And somebody said, well, look at Trump. He's going to run for a third term. Well, if he does, he's trying to change the system. He's not going to run for a third term. He's trying to troll you when he says that, but he's not going. He's already said he wasn't. But they want to structure the system so they can win because, like leftists from eternity, they don't have a message that anybody wants. Nobody wants to, be in a commune and have a guy lay on the sofa and complain that he's a victim, and then the other guy goes and works, and they split it 50-50.
Yeah.
As Plato says, even thieves, when they rob a bank, they split it up evenly. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what
Plus America
socialism
is, I'll say regular Americans have gotten through the fetal position stage. Those who, please don't call me a racist.
They don't care anymore.
Yeah.
They don't care anymore. They think the word means nothing anymore. I don't know what it means, but I've seen a lot of racism lately, but it's always directed at one particular group, white males who are deliberately not let into med schools, law schools, and they're still doing it. When you're Stanford University and there are, 35% of the population are white males, and you're letting in 9% for 3 or 4 years in a row following the George Floyd, and that's deliberate.
Yeah.
Deliberate.
One more thing on Obama. Well, two, because I want to read something from Rahm Emanuel's piece. But do you think it was Obama's crack at Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where Trump was attending, just as
Yes.
Donald Trump, that really Barack Obama may have given us Donald Trump by that one snotty snide.
Yeah, I don't know if he added it was the other line where he said, "I'm president and you'll never be president.
Yeah,
You'll never
something
be."
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one that really embarrassed him.
It was a gauntlet.
And
thrown down.
whatever your politics are, I think anybody will believe that Trump has more ambition than Obama did. He said he was going to fundamentally transform the country, but then he admitted in an interview that they asked him, "What's your greatest weakness?" He goes, "I'm lazy." The last year of his term, he just checked out. He was very unpopular, and he thought, you know what, if I wear Bermuda shorts and my shades and look cool and I'm playing golf and everybody dislikes Trump and Hillary, they'll fight it out and my ratings will go up. And he left at over 50%.
Yeah.
But he didn't do anything that last year at all. Maybe he tried the Iran deal, which he keeps now. It's really sad to see him defend the Iran deal. His heart's not in it. And he kind of says, well, when I did the Iran deal, they didn't have a bomb. Yeah, you green-lighted a bomb, and they enriched up to 60% under Biden. Well, we had a good deal, Ben Rhodes and I. It doesn't work anymore with him.
Yeah.
He kind of prances into a room. You see him on TV, and he prances in, and he looks around like, where is the adulation? I am here now. I'm here, Your Highness, and then I'm going to give you some trite, boilerplate advice, and you're supposed to be swooning over it. And it doesn't work. They've been through 8 years of the race mongering and the racial essentialism, the victimhood. The son I never had would have looked like Trayvon, downright mean country, all that stuff.
Yeah.
We're only preeminent like Greece and England, apology tour, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I just want to read something from this Rahm Emanuel op-ed in today's Wall Street Journal. It's titled President Obama's Legacy of Hope, and it has to do with the opening of this monstrosity, and it's located in south side of Chicago. So there's so much here, but I'll just read one. Here, then, is another example of President Obama's legacy of connecting disparate communities within our great country and making sure they feel that they belong. I guess not the clingers, but by the way.
Not the
opening,
people.
Yeah,
Not the people in Palestine, Ohio, I'll tell you
right,
that. You suppose.
Yeah. The opening of the Obama Presidential Center this June is a milestone for those of us who fought to make this a reality, a monument to Mr. Obama's vision of progress. The center will remind everyone of what's possible in both Chicago and America. Is he really writing this? Even at moments
Is he the director of it? Or is it Valerie Jarrett? Valerie Jarrett?
Valerie Jarrett is, yeah. Even at moments when we feel all is lost, we can change direction. As in 2008, our nation can restore its sense of hope we need now to save the strength, tenacity, wisdom, and sense of community to build a better tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going, what?
At least he didn't say that this fortress that has no windows. I mean, even the writing on the wall, you can't even read it. It's just everything about it. It looks like it's a pregnant high-rise with no windows. It doesn't, I mean, and destroyed a whole park.
Yeah.
And what's he going to achieve? What did he achieve? What did he achieve? His great view of the Middle East were Iran and Beirut and Syria and Gaza, and the Houthis would have strategic tension with Israel and the Gulf states, and then he would every once in a while fly in and be the referee. That didn't work. There is no Assad Syria anymore. There is no Hezbollah that's going to be around much longer. Iran might not be around. Your dream is in shambles because it was flawed.
He gave us a beer summit. He gave us cash for clunkers.
Cash for clunkers. Wasn't it Obama phone? He gave everybody a free phone. Yeah. He did a lot of stuff. Yeah. And then he said, I'm not going to run just to. If I run for president, it's going to be for change the country. I'm not going to run just to get rich. I don't be famous. And that's exactly what he ended up. He's worth $100 million.
Yeah, nice work if you can get it. So, Victor, we're going to talk about Colbert and Iowa, maybe some DEI, but first to our viewers and our listeners, American homeowners, the FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud called title theft, and your equity is the target. With just a forged signature, your ownership can be transferred out of your name, and without protection in place, you're left with an emotional and financial nightmare. That's why you should visit Home Title Lock so you can find out today if you're already a victim and protect yourself. Use the promo code VICTOR at HomeTitleLock.com to get a free title history report, plus a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if you're a victim of fraud, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code VICTOR. Use the link in the show notes. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today with Home Title Lock. And we thank the good people from Home Title Lock for sponsoring Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. At the sheer risk of blowing the minds of those who love to hear this Bronx accent, Victor, here's his headline. So today is the day, Thursday, May 21st, the last episode of Stephen Colbert and David Letterman's. And so David Letterman was on the show the other day. I didn't watch it. I can't stand him. He is such a punk. But here's this article. Letterman then asks who owns the furniture on the set, to which Colbert said everything belongs to CBS and Paramount. Are they affiliated with Skydance? That's the new owner. Letterman added. After Colbert confirmed that to be true, Letterman said it'd be a shame if something happened to it. The two hosts later climbed to the roof of the Ed Sullivan Theater, where they engaged in wanton destruction of CBS property. With the help of stagehands, the pair tossed the show's couches and Colbert's desk chair off the roof and onto a giant CBS logo below. And just for fun, they also hurled some watermelons and a cake provided by CBS. In his parting message, Letterman said, quote, "In the words of the great Edward R. Murrow, good night and good luck, mother blankers," end quote.
God, that's disgusting. Two spoiled brats. Two multimillionaire spoiled brats. There's millions of people in the United States that would say, why don't you give me the furniture? I don't have any furniture. That's not nothing about property rights. You just take somebody's property, and once you're told that it belongs to CBS, who overpaid both of them. But I think Colbert is making $20 million a year, and he's lost the network probably $100 million over his lifetime, and he has no sense of gratitude. So he goes up and takes somebody else's property and destroys it. Why don't they charge him with theft or vandalism or something? And then he throws it down on just destroy something. It's like nihilism. It's disgusting. Both of them have a really bad trait, and they introduced it. You saw a little bit with Johnny Carson, but it was sincere and it wasn't mean to be malicious. I don't think you saw it with Jay Leno at all. You didn't, a little bit with Dick Cavett, but that little side look, and you know what I mean, that kind of cynical, like I'm kind of smarter than everybody, and Jon Stewart does it a lot. You talk, and then you have a pause, and like only the really cool people like us on the left get what I'm getting at, and nothing they say you really know whether it's true or false, or they believe it or not. It's all cynical, skeptical. And he brought that element into Letterman did, and so did Colbert. So if you were talking to him, and he said, "Well, it's really good to see you." You don't know whether he's making fun of you or he's sincere, and everything had a double entendre. I mean, that's kind of characteristic of our society, in the 21st century. But it's too bad. And you look at these older hosts of bygone years; they were sincere, and it's
that they somehow have this.
They don't believe in anything.
Status as sages or the wise men of America.
But it's cynical. It's always just kind of Bill Maher was that way. He is still, but he's trying to improve a little bit. At least when he gives some talks on things. He gave a talk on antisemitism. He looked sincere, but something about the left, they're always smarter than you. They're always cynical. They're always more skeptical. And you're kind of a nutty person to take it at face value, or you just have your core values with no nuance. And I think we're tired of all that. That's the whole university, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let's move on to this Democrat candidate in Iowa admits being uncomfortable with whiteness as she seeks to flip a competitive House seat. So here's the story. A Democrat running in Iowa admitted to feeling uncomfortable by the whiteness of her hometown in Minnesota after returning from a stay in New Mexico years ago. Sarah Trone-Garriott, 47, who's running unopposed in the Democrat primary, she's running against Zach Nunn, is coming under fire for her comments. Yeah, I remember the first time I came back to northern Minnesota to visit. I was kind of shocked at how many white people there were. Trone-Garriott recalled the area where she grew up in a resurfaced podcast episode. The feeling was very different. I was like, whoa. And again, I'm uncomfortable in a different way. Who thinks this way, Victor?
I don't know. If you were a Mexican American or black person, you said, I'm really uncomfortable with blacks. I can't believe there's so many black people. That people would say you were Uncle Tom, you were false consciousness, you were deluded, you were insane, you're cruel, you're racist. There's no finer person than Larry Elder, and he ran, and they were calling him all sorts of these type of white people were calling him names because they didn't think he was authentically black when he represented the best of black culture.
They call him like a white Negro or something.
Yeah,
like that,
they did. It's so when I hear that, it's usually from very upper middle class people that haven't been around poor white people. Mm-hmm. One of the unique things of the San Joaquin Valley is it had a lot of diasporas. Mm-hmm. In the late 19th and early 20th century, we had a lot of Chinese and then Japanese come, mostly as farmers. We had, of course, a lot of people came across the border. We had a lot of Mexican Americans. But the biggest, from 1930 to 1941, 20 years of the Oklahoma diaspora. And that was over 1 million people came with nothing. And so when I went to I'll just give you an example. In grade 1 to 3 at a little school called Jefferson, it's now on the bad side. It was then of Selma. There was a 2-story house right next to the playground. And I'd say that student body that I went, my twin brother and I, and maybe 5 farming families were the only so-called white people in there. It was in the barrio. It is today. And nobody knew what you were. Nobody said, you're Mexican, you're white. People would make fun of you being white but there was no animosity. Mm-hmm. The teachers were all integration, assimilation, acculturation. But my point is, next to there was this house, had no paint on it. It was an old 2-story wood house. And there were 3 girls that lived there, and their parents were either divorced or not there or alcoholic or drug-ridden. They had nothing. And they were very, very pretty girls, like 10, 12, but they had what they used to call a Welsh overbite, I got it from my grandma. They called him Bucky Beaver, and I had to have braces, but they all had an overbite, and people made fun of them and called him Bucky, Bucktooth. But the point I'm making is they had nothing. And the teachers would get clothing and food and bring it over to the girl because they were almost abandoned. And when they came I went to also school with them. One of them, I'm not going to mention anything that would incriminate, or she was absolutely beautiful, but she had nothing white, and people in that, and she lived in that area, and they were very mean to her. It wasn't because she was white and they were Mexican, just because she was poorer than they were.
Right.
And I saw a lot of families like that. I can remember growing up here when a family came every year from Oklahoma. And as soon as they came, I said to my mom, I won't mention their names because I think they're still around, but I said, the Thompsons are still here, and he's going to get this big pole, and we're going to knock down a possum and the big pecan trees. And then they eat it. Can you believe that? They eat it. And she said, don't ever make fun of the Thompson. They're the nicest people. They're hardworking, and you're no better than they are. But my point is that common white poverty was endemic from Bakersfield up to Sacramento, especially from Fresno to Bakersfield. And, they had nothing. And this idea that I'm ashamed of my whiteness, of my white privilege, is that what she's saying?
Yeah.
These people had no privilege. The people, when you looked at East Palestine, they had nothing.
Right.
And when Pete Buttigieg, he didn't even show up when they had that toxic spill. And then when he did, he looked like he was from outer space. He stood out so much. He was, in his voice, it was just condescending. And it was just, they don't understand this country at all, that the greatest number of people who are poor are white. Maybe not percentage-wise of the white population, but they're poor. They don't have a lot. But they all of a sudden, when Obama created this binary, they were put on the oppressor victimizer, and it had nothing to do with class. The people who have class advantages are Mondami. His dad is a PhD left-wing with endowed professorship. His mother is a filmmaker with subsidies from the government. He came from this settler colonial family in Uganda. Can I use that term, Mondami? Settler colonial? That's what you call the Israelis that have 3,500 years of history. You didn't. I didn't know there were a lot of Indians in Uganda 3,500 years ago, which I don't care about, but you do. And same thing. It's just, I don't get it at all. I don't. That was something in the Democratic Party when you saw Trump. There was it wasn't just the irredeemables and the deplorables. Clingers, Obama started it when he wrote off poor white people in Pennsylvania. They cling to their guns and religion, like they're not as smart as I am. That's what he was saying. And then Hillary did the irredeemables and the deplorable. Then Biden picked up on it with chumps and dregs. He said the dregs, and then garbage. And that characterized the new elite Democratic view of what they used to champion. TVA, the noble, poor, white, working class. They hated that because they had gone from class concerns to racial essentialism. And your race now mattered, not your class. And if you look at when you look at what's happened now, it's no longer affirmative action gets preference. It's anybody who qualifies for DEI has one qualification, not your salary, not what your parents own, not their degrees, not how privileged you were, just what color your skin is.
These people want it both ways, not only their status, I'm elite, I went to this school, or whatever branding that's important, but it's also important to them to say, and I'm not that like them. So
it's so funny you
they
said
have to
that.
denigrate.
I was remembering, I was a faculty member at Cal State for 21 years, and there was this woman that detested me, and she would come in and she tried to bait me at faculty meetings talking about her latest left-wing crusade. But it was always prefaced with, well, I just got back from the Bay Area. I saw my nephew, and of course, we packed him off to Harvard. And then my sister's daughter, we're getting a big fight. She wants to go to Princeton, but I want her to go to Stanford. And that's what she just name dropped. And then she didn't say any any disparity, but she was talking about like a Marxist during the meeting, we need to have more of this in here, and we have to have the, gender studies and race studies across the curriculum, and classics is no exception. And then you thought she was Lenin or somebody. And then as soon as I thought she was going to say sometime, I thought I said something I should have never said. She was yelling at me once. She told me to shut up in a meeting. I was laughing when she was talking. She said, "Shut up." And I said, "Do you think your DACA in the Black Sea is bigger than mine? Is that what it is?" But she was something.
Envy. Yeah.
So I learned very early in life that one of the psychological motivations that they hate the white poor is that they love nice homes, wood floors, designer kitchens. And they don't like American car. They want a Range Rover, BMW, something tasteful. And they don't go on a cruise ship. They go, to, I don't know, some beautiful valley in Lombardy or somewhere in Italy or France. And everything is tasteful. And to justify that privilege and that satisfaction of their appetites that no one else can approximate because they're elitist and they're privileged, psychologically they square that circle by saying, "But I hate white people. I hate poor white people. I just can't stand them. They're gross." That's what Trump. That's the secret to the hatred of him, I think. When he walks out with Dana White and mixed martial arts,
right,
and he's embossed with gold everywhere he can touch. He's like King Midas. He touches something and gold appears, and and then his Queen's accent. It's just so earthy that to them, if I can really trash him, I can go to Venice again this week and not feel bad about myself, or I can remodel my Upper West Side kitchen and make it according to the latest magazine. It's just that is a psychological mechanism to hate poor white people and if you're poor and you're brown or black, you're romanticized, but not poor white people.
No, they will go to bingo. They go play bingo. They go to WWE wrestling. Yeah, they are branded the wrong brand. Hey, Victor, let's close out. I forgot to mention the other day. A week ago or last week. We mentioned the Bradley Prizes. You were unable to go, but they had the ceremony, and I did attend. And Rabbi Soloveitchik was one of the three honorees, and
good.
he's been a terrific. I love the guy. I know him somewhat. Great champion for America and patriotism, but he wanted to convey how important the things you've been saying and writing are to the Jewish community in America. Particularly, you had just written the four traits of anti-Semitism. So he buttonholed me and he said, "Please let Victor know how much that
I appreciate
matters."
that. I had some criticism on that, but my experience is very strange because I did not know someone who was Jewish till I went to UC Santa Cruz at 17. And I think at that time, I remember they said 25% of the population was Jewish, mostly from Southern California.
Right.
That was kind of the in place to go for a couple of years. And that's the first time my knowledge was all abstract. And then when I met all these people, I went to Greece, and my best friend in Greece was a guy named Paul Roth. He was I guess he ended up as a very successful lawyer in Australia. And another guy named Andy Aronson. The three of us were very good friends, but I didn't see any, I didn't see any unique, you know what I mean? I don't see any of the animate. I did hear anti-Semitic stuff, but it was usually about packers and prices from farmers. And they said, "Well, we sent a semi over to New York, and then the price I was quoted $2.50 a lug, and I got 50 cents back because the Jews stole it, or the Armenians. They were called Fresno Jews." And that was really it was kind of a racist thing about in the abstract, though. But my parents, I don't know where they got that. They were absolutely staunch supporters of Israel and Jews all the time. And I never really knew what a Jew was. They had a couple of friends that were Jewish very close friends. In fact, some of their best friends were Jewish, but I didn't know them very well. They would go to San Francisco and sit with them and meet with them. But so for me, it was always the Jewish community. Everything about it was exemplary. I mean, they were law-abiding, they were hardworking, they gave so much to America, they did all of these wonderful things. And then the Holocaust, what happened to them when people allowed the anti-Semitism to get out of control, and then they were always a small minority of the population, so they were always vulnerable. And so it really shocked me to see a couple of things. The silence of the Democratic Party when the guy with a Nazi tattoo is their candidate for Senate in Maine, or this crazy Mondami Islamic wing where you're marching and trying to intimidate Jews, children and stuff. And then October 7th, it was just so horrific. And I said that to Piers Morgan when he and I got into it, and this crazy professor. I just said, do you tell me what you would do on October 7th? They come across the border to your community in a time of peace with civilians egging them on, and they rape, murder, kill, torture 1,200 people. The most medieval things that's not fair. Somebody wrote me from I'm a medieval scholar, Victor, and that was so unfair of you to say the word medieval. It was medieval people didn't do this. They're probably right.
Well, Marquis de Sade probably did some of the things. Yeah.
But to do all of that, and what would you do in reply? Oh, you would ask for the ringleaders who planned it. Yes, they did. And they didn't give them up. Oh, you would try to negotiate with the hostages. They did, and they wouldn't give them up. You would wait maybe 2-3 weeks, lose the strategic initiative, and see if the world would rally to your cause. The Europeans, the UN, the United States, no, they didn't do it. So then you would say, we're going to have to make war, but you would drop leaflets and say, get out of this place. This area is an entry and exit into the subterranean. They did. And there was no other choice but to just wage war. And, all the information came from Hamas. So we never knew how many people were getting killed. All we knew is that whatever happened, they lied about it and exaggerated, as they always do. And so I didn't see this hatred coming in the way it did, and I didn't see it at all coming from the right. I knew Nick Fuentes was doing that, and Candace was, but I never saw it from Tucker. And then when I heard it, I thought, well, he didn't mean that. And then I heard another broadcast. Well, he's talking about Israel this week, Jews this week, Israel this week, Jews.
Yeah.
The thing about anti-Semitism, and we've talked about that before, it's not just the overt crudeness of it. Farrakhan, they're parasites, it's a gutter religion. Or Malcolm X, they're termites, or Al Sharpton, and Jesse Jackson, Hymietown, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the biggest anti-Semites was, not that the sins of the uncle go on the son, but Hakim Jeffries' uncle,
right,
who was a professor and was a complete anti-Semite. But my point is that when you see all this, it's the disproportionality. So right now in the world, what's going on in Africa, Black Africa against Christians, is horrific. What Vladimir Putin did in the Chechenian war, he leveled Grozny. He just leveled it. What you see in Cyprus, you've got a whole people who have been displaced since 1973. The most industrious people in the world. We had Max Nikias on here, the wonderful ex-president, the president emeritus at USC. He was displaced with the Turkish invasion. They've never gotten their homes back. And yet we don't talk about Cyprus. We don't talk about Grozny. We don't talk about what's going on in Africa. All we talk about is this little 11 million people, Jew, and all these sins. But we don't, once we establish all of the sins of Israel supposedly conducts and is responsible for it, we don't apply it to anybody else. Because if you do, it would overwhelm the examples of Israel. And that's the true sign of anti-Semitism. When you focus on one particular group and you apply a completely different standard to it, and that becomes an obsession. if you look at the Arab world and what happens in those Arab cities and countries, when the city of Hama under Hafez al-Assad, he wiped the whole thing out. Even Tom Friedman wrote about it. He wiped the whole town out, 20,000 people he wiped out. Saddam Hussein, he wiped out the Marsh Arabs. He tried to wipe out the Kurds. That's commonplace in the Arab world. But why is it that you just focus on Israel, 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 Jew, 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 unless there's some intrinsic dislike or hatred of it? Somebody can tell me I don't know what the answer is, but it seems that why would you do that? And when I look at Trump today, I don't see, Jared Kushner is Jewish, son-in-law.
Well, his daughter's a convert.
Witkoff, the Commerce Secretary, but they're not controlling Donald Trump. Netanyahu, I've tried to read the Israeli Times, the liberal version, and the Jerusalem Post, more conservative, and they're all in there. All the editorials are about how Israel's been had maybe by Trump and the United States. It's going to be left hanging. It's not. There's nothing in there that Netanyahu led us to war. Nothing at all. It's much different, and so it's just a strange phenomenon. And then when you meet, I have a lot of Jewish friends, and you meet Jews that come up to you and talk. It's, they're very scared. They really are, and they're being attacked. I mentioned that before. My wife and I was going to a doctor's appointment in Menlo Park, and we went to this very well-known cafe, very left-wing in downtown Menlo Park. And I'm sitting there, and a guy comes up and says, "I just love your stuff." Oh, I thought he was kind of crazy, but I was very polite to him. My wife was sitting next to me, and then his eyes got really narrow, and you could see something was bugging. And I just wanted to tell you something. I praised you, but I got to tell you. He got right in my face, and he said, "You're a Zionist apologist, and the Jews have done this," and he just flipped out. Everybody turned around. I said, "Don't touch me. Please don't touch me." I wasn't a cancer survivor there, so I could have unloaded on him. But he kept, I said, "You're pathetic. You're just full of hatred. Get away from me." And he turned into a monstrous person. It was just an obsession. And it destroys people when they get into that. It's really tragic, because I don't know what some of the people on the right had those tendencies, and this was an opportunity to express them, or it consumed them, but it's going to destroy them. Anybody who is obsessed with anti-Semitism they destroy their careers, they destroy everything.
Yeah. Frankly, any obsession distorts your perspective on other things. So that's what
race, the same thing. Same thing.
Hey, Victor, coming up, starting tomorrow on Friday, Memorial Day weekend, I just want to make note of Turner Classic Movies. Ted Turner passed away, I think 2 weeks ago. Well, maybe the best thing he ever did was to create Turner Classic Movies. And Turner, as much as you watch it sometimes, and if they have to praise some of the Hollywood blacklist, and it just makes your blood boil. But every Memorial Day weekend, so starting Friday through the Monday, they run strictly great movies, military movies, war movies. I really encourage folks, if you have TCM, check it out. Das Boot is not one of them, Victor. I apologize, but they rotate this. Pork Chop Hill, Guns and Navarone.
Guns and Navarone is Gregory Peck, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a Gregory Peck month, so they're highlighting a few of his, including Pork Chop Hill is his. The Red Badge of Courage, the black and white John Huston movie, which is really a sensational movie. Midway.
That was Charlton Heston, the older one.
Yeah.
That's not such a good movie.
No, it's not, but it's okay. 30 Seconds Over Tokyo.
That's actually a good movie. I read the book, too. The guy's name was Lawson. I haven't talked to Jack about this, so I'm just extemporaneous.
Oh, yeah, I'm springing.
He lost his leg. He wrote about he got his leg amputated, but that was a good movie.
Yeah. The Best Years of Our Life, of
That's
course.
an excellent movie.
Yeah.
Frederick Marsh is he and Dana Andrews are just great actors.
Yeah, I think we're watching a Frederick March movie.
Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, I just saw it.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was commenting to my daughter. I was like, Frederick March is such a great actor.
He is.
He was a man of, he wasn't of the left.
He was one of those actors that was a good person, and it just radiated in his acting.
Yeah.
Even when Robert De Niro was a great actor, and he is a great actor in particular roles, you get the impression that he's a great actor because he's a mean SOB, and it radiates through the character he's playing.
Yeah,
like he did a great job on that Max Cady in Cape Fear. It was kind of a psychopath. I thought Robert Mitchum was actually better, but I think that he was playing himself, those tendencies of being mean and speaking like he does.
There's something foul in him. I'll just end this with 7 Days in May and A Walk in the Sun.
That's a good movie. Walk in the Sun. That's another good movie.
Oh, I love that film. That's Dana Andrews is the star of it. So there's about 40 or so movies here. So folks, check it out. And I'm glad some institution in America is finding significant time to pay tribute to those who gave their lives for us, and Turner does. So God bless him for that. So, now Victor, I have to read a couple of comments, and then we'll wrap it up here. Hundreds of people leave comments on various platforms on the show. So here are some of them. Lauren Glass writes, "Thank you, VDH and Sammy, for the rich discussion, including the perspective of history. Once again, Victor's classical education explains much of what is going on in our world. Extra Pencil 2, which is a great name. I learned more in a few minutes of listening to VDH than hours. I no longer waste listening to anyone who disagrees with him or simply doesn't understand what Dr. Hanson does. Thank you for every word." BJN BL4OE, I don't know what that means, but writes, "You talked about what California was in the 1960s, how it looked like paradise and endlessly rising, and how would you destroy it? It made me think about the book Cadillac Desert by Mark Reisner."
Yes, I knew that book very well. He died tragically of, I think, leukemia. He was a man of the left, but he wrote a really good book, and he really talked about the water in California.
Water, yeah. So he says here, the book talks about the idyllic California was based on harvesting water from the Sierra Madre and the Colorado River. As you listed all the substructures of California that are collapsing, I realized that California could be a desert once more. Strange to think about. Yeah. So, well, Victor, you've been terrific.
It was a desert when my great-great-grandmother came here. It was a desert, and they tapped the Kings River, and they were able to grow things.
Well, it was a sea once upon a time, right? The Central Valley. Is that the belief that the sediment there was...
Some of it, but Tulare Lake was the largest freshwater lake east of... Well, actually, it was the largest... It had a larger area than Tahoe even. But it was only about 8 to 10, 20 feet deep. But it was basically all the way to the Ridge Route, to the Grapevine, 70, 80 miles. And it was drained when the Kings, it drained, there were a tributary of the San Joaquin and the Kings both drained. When they dammed the San Joaquin rivers, 5 or 6 dam, and then the big one at Pine Flat and the Kings, and the Cahuilla, there was a lot of rivers that dumped into it.
Okay.
But that's one of the richest farming. That's the Boswell Corporation today, and Salyer, the old Salyer Corporation, and that's got some of the richest soil in the world still from all those years of sediment and sea life and everything, or lake life at the bottom. It's nitrogen.
I enjoy all the greens and reds and whatever that come from it. Victor, I want to thank the folks that subscribe to Civil Thoughts. That's what I do. One of the things I do for the Center for Civil Society. Comes out every Friday. 14 recommended readings. I know you'll like it. Go to civilthoughts.com. Sign up. It's totally free. Victor, you've been terrific. Thanks for all the wisdom you shared and analyses. Thanks, folks, for listening and watching. We'll be back soon with another episode of Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Daily Signal. Please like, share, and subscribe to be notified for more content like this. You can also check out my own website at victorhanson.com and subscribe for exclusive features in addition.